That's an awesome question. You understand the heart and feelings of developers here. That's brilliant.
Theatrhythm Final Bar Line is nothing short of a monumental game. It features over 500 tracks from Final Fantasy and beyond, over 100 characters, tons of difficulty and accessibility options, and a whole new array of RPG mechanics that need to be mastered alongside your timing in order to defeat super bosses and finish quests. In short, it's a love letter to anyone who's a fan of Final Fantasy, rhythm games, and role-playing games. Now, many of you know we love to delve into the archives to learn about the history of this illustrious franchise, and with Theatrhythm Final Bar Line being developed as a swan song for this particular sub-franchise, it felt like the perfect time to speak with the creators to understand more about how Theatrhythm came to be, the philosophies behind why they've introduced so many new elements into Final Bar Line, and where they see the Theatrhythm IP heading in the future. Fortunately, we were able to realise a long-held dream. After being invited by Square Enix to speak to Ichiro Hazama and Masanobu Suzui, who are easily the two most important people associated with Theatrhythm, we jumped at the chance. Because how often do you get the chance to speak to the creators, to ask them about their vision, and whether they're open to, say, Theatrhythm NieR, or even what they see as the future of the Dissidia franchise? So with that in mind, we'd recommend you get cozy and enjoy our lengthy discussion. So the first question is, with rhythm games being so popular throughout the 2000s, why do you think it took so long for a Final Fantasy-based music game to be made?
So actually, I think it goes back even further than that. You're talking about the very first time that I had the idea, I'd really like to make a game which involved the music of Final Fantasy. I think that was when I was just joined the company. So I think we first made the original Theatrhythm was 12 years ago. And this goes back maybe 15 years in total. So it was just as I joined the company, really.
At the time, there was only really one game that had done the thing of having every single Final Fantasy game featured in one game. That was Dissidia. So I think the biggest challenge and the thing we really scratched our heads about when we were working out how to do Dissidia was to get that one consistent visual style that tied together all of the different Final Fantasy games. So I was discussing that with Nomura Tetsuya, and he actually made a proposal to use Monster Octopus, who's obviously a really great designer. He'd been working on a lot of games before he came to work on Dissidia, and proposed that we use him for the visuals. So I think when I was working on Advent Children, it was pretty much exactly the same time when the original Dissidia came out. So that was when I saw Dissidia and what had been done with that, and it kind of reignited the idea in my head. Yeah, it'd be great to do like an all Final Fantasy kind of rhythm game. So that was when I kind of came back to the idea as it was.
Could you share who was responsible for proposing this brand new vision for Theatrhythm, or was it more of a collective decision? And was Final Bar Line always planned to be part of the 35th anniversary?
So
I think the development team, and from my perspective as part of that team, was we'd essentially been working on using the Unity engine, which was a new engine at the time, making rhythm games for about 3 years at that point. We'd done Theatrhythm All-Star Carnival, the arcade game, which only came out in Japan, and we moved straight on there working on Melody of Memories. So we'd had a lot of experience, built up a lot of know-how how to make rhythm action games using that new engine. And when it came then to, well, what do we do next? I thought I'd like to really use that experience and push it to make a new Theatrhythm game. That's when we took that idea to Mr. Hazama, and that was what became Final Bar Line. So yeah, what he says there is absolutely correct. The original proposal for the game did come from Mr. Suzui and his team. So slightly afterwards, when we got thinking about it a bit more, that we decided to make it a 30th anniversary title, because we felt obviously the original Theatrhythm was a 25th anniversary title, and then considering moving into the 30th anniversary, it really does fit. This is a suitable game to release as a 30th anniversary title in terms of the volume of gameplay, the gameplay systems that we're putting in there. And so, okay, we've got it now. We can make this a 35th anniversary game, and we're going to put all of the things we want to put into this game as part of that.
It's clear that Final Bar Line builds upon All-Star Carnival, but this time there's a heavy emphasis on RPG elements. The game even includes super bosses. What was behind this shift, and why wasn't it possible to have this level of detail until now?
That's an awesome question. You understand the heart and feelings of developers here. That's brilliant. So All-Star Carnival was a game that was only released in Japan, and unfortunately fans of the series from abroad never really got to enjoy it. But we did have the original two Theatrhythm games, the first one and Curtain Call. Those were on 3DS, and obviously they were released and enjoyed by people worldwide. When it came to working on Final Bar Line, I definitely wanted to use the experience we'd gained in making All-Star Carnival and all the know-how that we collected from developing it. But because that was not something that was released worldwide, I felt what the fans would really want to see would be basically the sequel to Curtain Call. And so I used that for the technical side, but I set out in terms of what we want to do with the game to make it that sequel to Curtain Call. So I think the type of game that we're looking for to develop there is slightly different. With the arcade game, it's very much focused on skill and people who play rhythm action games and want to get better at them. It's aimed at that kind of audience. But for a home console game, it's a different kind of thing people are looking for. You want as many different people as possible to be able to play it and enjoy it, and that's where the RPG elements come in and the various different difficulties in the rhythm game part of it itself. So that was a conscious choice in how we aimed the gameplay and who it was made for. So I can still remember actually the initial discussions we had on that. Mr. Hazama, he really is a fan of those kinds of RPG game elements. We got discussing it and got excited about it. Oh yeah, we should make it have that real strategy element, that deep tactical element where you choose your party, you level up your party, you choose skills, and you work out the best combinations and then use them to defeat monsters. And so we both felt that's what we'd want to see in the game, and then decided to add that.
So do you think we did a good job on that?
So why are you asking me? Why are you asking me? So I think we did do a good job, and we managed to realise what we wanted to achieve there. I think up until Curtain Call, the nature of the party composition mechanics and the way you thought about that was really all about how do I make it most efficient to earn experience points. That was pretty much the focus. So I think the depth of the strategic elements of the RPG elements in Final Bar Line are that one or two levels higher really than we saw before. Because now it's a lot more about, well, what party do I form? What elemental? We've got an elemental affinity system, and how do I defeat this boss within the time before the song ends? Obviously, Mr. Suzui's team put some super powerful bosses in there, and it now is really strategic about working out, well, who do I have on my team to defeat them in the time that I have. So yeah, we kind of felt that the CP system was restricting the freedom in players' choices there. So you don't have to do them now. You don't have them now. You can be really free in who you choose. So again, on top of that, there's other options. You don't have to have a party of 4 as well. You can play with a party of 3 characters, 2 characters. You can even have 1 on their own if you want. And so that kind of opens up the idea of people who like to restrict their play and challenge themselves with put deliberate restrictions on yourself.
With the shift to button input, it feels like there's been a huge evolution with the gameplay. But who came up with the decision to have critical and perfect critical? And why did you feel it was necessary?
Basically, in the Japanese, I can't remember what the localized English term for it is. It's called the relaunch mechanic. So when you get the 999999999 score, it initiates what's called relaunch. So I think it's actually comparatively easier to get it in the Theatrhythm games than it is to other rhythm games out there. And maybe perfect score would be the term in English, I think. So it's essentially like a system of rewards for players of different levels. Like I say, the original Theatrhythm is actually quite a lot easier to get that level for even if you're not a super skillful player. But so we want to add in something extra to praise and reward the people who really are good at the game. So that's where that extra super critical comes in there. And if you manage to get lots of that, then it's saying, yeah, you really are the top level of skill player. But for people who aren't quite that level, you still want to encourage them, motivate them, and say, no, you did a good job there. And it's a similar kind of thing, but not quite at the same level, which is where the regular critical comes in. So yeah, I mean, I just want to say to people there, don't worry if you're not getting the super criticals. You don't have to, really. It's still really, really good to get the regular criticals. And you get that, again, you don't have to aim for the SSS score on every single stage. Triple SS, that's a really good score too. Again, you don't have to worry either about going for the top difficulty levels, the ultimate difficulty level. We only play up to expert ourselves. We can't really do anything higher than that. So you can have fun at any level, don't worry. Yeah, I don't think it's a good idea to compare your performance to what you did when you played Curtain Call. Just look at it as its own standard, really. And I think aiming for SSS is a really good benchmark for a good player.
Supreme difficulty has been included to further enhance the challenge. How did you decide which tracks were given this extra difficulty setting? And when looking across the entire catalogue, which song do you believe is the hardest to get a perfect score?
Okay, the important factor in deciding that is the number of individual sounds which you get in a track. If there aren't many sounds in a track, you can't make an extreme track out. So the kinds of songs which actually lend themselves to being made into the extreme level are, they've got to be fast, first of all, and they've got to have a very high tempo and have lots of complicated, subtle sounds within them. So essentially, I'm not sure we looked at it from a perspective of this one isn't suitable or it's not really going in the right direction to make it an extreme one. It's more a case of when we looked at them, oh, this really is one that would work for the highest difficulty level. Let's make it at that level. So actually, when we made All-Star Carnival, the arcade game, we deliberately had some special arrangements made of some of the songs to make them suitable to be the extreme difficulty level tracks. So any of the ones you see in Final Bar Line, which has arrangement from All-Star Carnival, you can generally tell by that those are going to be the ones that are the most challenged. So yeah, I mean, I think it's the metrics used in musical terms is VPN, and by doubling that over what it would be in the standard version of the track, that really makes it that much harder to play. So I mean, it was very famous in Japan, actually. The Big Bridge theme was one of the real hard ones to play. So it's the All-Star Carnival arrangement of the Big Bridge theme. 16 different difficulty levels. You see the number next to the track to show what level it is. If you play anything on level 16, that's super dangerous. You probably shouldn't even touch those. So we've also made one extra track, the Final Bar Line Battle Medley, which is specifically created for this game. That's also a really hard one. So that's incredibly difficult. And what it is basically a medley of all of the battle songs from the various different Final Fantasies over the years. Not just the standard battle music. There's some other variant battle music mixed in there as well. But it's got the real representative phrases from each of those, every single one featured in that 3-minute track. So I have played. Oh, yeah,ぜひやりたいです. You think you can do it?
I'll give it a go.
1回だけチャレンジしてみます。
So we're curious, who's the best Theatrhythm player on the development team?
Okay, I'd say the best guy, there's one of our programmers, a guy called Yamazaki, and he's really amazing. I think what you're seeing in the development team now is there's like a changing of the generations with all of the younger people coming in now. Yeah, they're beating us silly.
New generation.
いや、次の世代に負けてるんですか。
Yeah, that guy, he told us a while back that, yeah, he basically spent half of his life playing rhythm games in arcades ever since he was a student. So, yeah, he really is good at them. So his usual job is to do the programming for Final Bar Line, but when we've created one of the top difficulty level stages, we actually take him out there as right, now you're going to test that for us. And the thing is, he's just so good that you look at his playing and you think, is that working automatically? Have we got like a loop program on him?
Are there any plans to introduce tracks from Final Fantasy XVI or perhaps Final Fantasy XIV Endwalker?
So, honest answer, we're not considering that at the moment.
So currently we haven't finished working on the DLC that we've got planned already. So before we want to think about anything else, we want to get everything that we've got on the table finished right now. That's where we are at the moment.
The other thing is, in terms of creating stages for Theatrhythm based on another game, on another Final Fantasy game, and as you see in all the little details that his team puts into it, we really need to know what that game is about before we play it. So like what the really memorable music tracks are, and what the real memorable scenes are, so we can make the backgrounds for them properly. And again, neither myself or Mr. Suzui, I think, know a lot about 16 at the moment. I think all the information that we have, it's probably not much different to what you know about 16. So we really need to play it first before we even think about what to include from it.
That is one of my favorite versions of the Easter
So, I mean, you're really picking up on all the points that he loves hearing about. You got like the RPG elements and the little Easter eggs, and yeah, it was all put in because that's what he loves. No, I'm just so happy to hear these kind of things. It's not just me. I'm here as the representative for the development team of about 50 people, and we all love the game so much that it's really reassuring. It's really inspiring to see that what we tried to do, what we're trying to communicate has reached the fans here in England. So once you guys have gone away today, you've made this video about it and saying these kinds of things, I'd love to show this to the development team so they can see that too.
You mentioned to Dengeki Magazine that Final Bar Line has been used to convey that this is the final Theatrhythm game, but you also said the same with Curtain Call. As such, you've now gone on record as saying that what happens next really depends on the fans. Perhaps that means we'll see a new game for the 45th anniversary?
No, I mean, I'll say it, if that did happen, I think that'd be a great thing. But actually, I was speaking to Yoshinori Kitase about this a little while back, and he said a similar thing, really. He said, well, if this one does well, do you want to make another one? But yeah, I said to him, I gave the same answer. I said, no, this is our intention. This is going to be the final one. We're putting everything into it to be the last culmination of the series. But having said this, it's not a bad thing. It's not a sad development or anything. But I think in 10 years' time, if another Theatrhythm is going to be made, it will probably be the next generation of creators that makes it and not us. In 10 years' time, there's a new upcoming creator, and he comes and says, well, I remember Theatrhythm, that game from 10 years ago. I really love that game. I'd love to make a new version of it. We're not going to complain. We're not going to say anything about it. The only thing we have to say to that guy is, go ahead, do your best, make it.
You've both been working together for over a decade on various rhythm games associated with Final Fantasy, Dragon Quest, and Kingdom Hearts. With the Final Fantasy chapter now seemingly closed, you mentioned that you'd like Theatrhythm to become its own IP. Would you perhaps consider making more specialized games like Theatrhythm NieR, for example?
No, I think it's not the case that we've directly gone to the other IP holders and asked them to do something like this. I think it's pretty much the same as I said in the last interview, is if that would happen someday, if it could somehow be realised, I think it'd be a really great thing. So I'd love to see that. So I think I remember from the previous questions, and you guys really remember the stuff we said when we were younger men, don't you? So can you read Japanese articles? Because you obviously got that from the Dengeki Online article, which was in Japanese.
Online translators are amazing. Well, you can speak Japanese.
No, I'm really happy for what you guys are doing. It's just a really great interview, and I really want to answer directly and honestly about things. You've done your homework, you've researched it, you've looked at everything, and you're bringing all that knowledge here to the interview, so it's really great. Thanks for that.
Thank you. I mean, to your point, I mean, it sounds like Yoko Taro-san always says he wants to just do things that make money. It sounds like a no-brainer.
ですけれども、金になるのは何でもするよみたいなことをおっしゃるんじゃないですか。だったらシアトリズムニアって本当にこうもう考えなくても大丈夫でしょ。
I think Theatrhythm Yoko Taro might be a good one. Yeah. I think that'd be awesome. We'd get him to write a story for it, and it'd be this weird, messed up universe involving all of the previous games that Yoko Taro have made. That'd be a great game. I think the Theatrhythm world would just be destroyed. You could get the post-apocalyptic Theatrhythm of 10,000 years later. Probably at that point, it's a good idea to stop.
They'll just throw in random buttons everywhere. It's just
いや、しかも操作もね、その音楽と関係なくランダムに音が入ってくるんじゃないですか。
I think in one of the Drakengard games there was a rhythm section where you couldn't actually see the notes.
でもドラッケンガードにリズムゲームのミニゲームあったんじゃないですか。だけど譜面が見えないというのがまあさすがに横太郎だなと思いました。意地悪だよね。Yeah, he likes bullying people with that. It's a great thing he does that he breaks your expectations completely.
Within your business unit, there's a willingness to connect properties. This saw a connection created between Theatrhythm and Dissidia, and now Stranger of Paradise and Dissidia have been connected. Everything seems to point back, though, to Dissidia. But with Dissidia NT not quite landing with the fanbase, even though Opera Omnia continues to do well, do you feel as though there's unfinished business? And if so, would you like to create a spiritual successor to Dissidia Duodecim?
そうですね、多分2つお返事をするべきかなと思うのは
Okay, so I think there's probably two things I should answer about that. And first of all, in terms of putting links and connections between the games that we make, I don't particularly pay too much attention to that, and it's not deliberate on my part. I think if there is connections like that, you probably have to talk to our creative director, Nomura Tetsuya, about those, and the guy who's in charge, the producer of both Opera Omnia and Final Fantasy Origins. There's a great guy called Fujiwara Jin. So if you ever get a chance to talk to those guys, I think they may be able to tell you a bit more about it. From my personal side, though, I'm not really aware of any deliberate connections. So that in terms of the other part of the question, though, is whether I'd like to do another Dissidia. I think maybe more than wanting to do it myself, I want someone else to do it. I definitely want someone to take up the reins and continue to push that. I think we should always be challenging the industry and trying to push and do new things with Dissidia. It's perhaps not... It'd be a bit weird if we did that whole world. It's got its own setting and the idea of and doing it through the medium of a battle game as well. And I think that's something that we really couldn't do outside of Dissidia. So I want to see different creators just keep pushing and trying to take on new challenges with Dissidia.
Right, well, that's all the questions. I think, as a final, I just want to say thank you to both of you for your efforts, and for you, Hazama-san, as you guys probably picked up, I spent a lot of time looking back at the past history, and I just want to say a note of appreciation, because I know that over the years you've worked on a lot of experimental games, like All the Bravest, like Worldwide Worlds, I think it is, but like Airborne Brigade, like kind of like games that we didn't necessarily get in the West. But I just want to say, like, thanks for kind of just constantly trying to experiment, try new things, even if they don't always work. But it's good to see someone trying that.
まあ今日はいろいろお答えいただきありがとうございました。で特にもうお二人お気づきのようですが、私はそういうシリーズの歴史とかお二人のキャリアの歴史見るのが結構好きで、結構時間かけてやってるんですけれども、やっぱり狭間さんのすごいと思っていたところでぜひ感謝したいのが、いつも実験的なゲームを応援して出してくださってるところなんですよ。例えば欧米で出てないものも多いんですけれども、オール・ザ・ブレイベストとか、ワールド・ワイド・ワールズとか、そういったタイトルも次々とやっぱ試してみて実験して出してくださってるので、そういうチャレンジャー精神にはものすごい感謝しています。ありがとうございます。
So yeah, I mean, I probably shouldn't say too much about it. I might get full of myself here, but I think you can look at it in two ways. I think that having myself wanting to do that and having a company that lets me do that is a great thing, but they're probably a bit messed up in the head.
Thank you.
ありがとうございます。
Thank you so much.
Thank you.